Part 2. These questions are asked to introduce a lesson. It seeks to remind learners of what they have been taught before. They are check-up test. The aim is to stir up learners' eagerness to know more. It also let the teacher know the knowledge of the learners and what to build on. Education questions. They are meant to let the learner compare, imagine, or infer, so it enable the learners build upon their ideas as the teacher wants. The questions are therefore call for real mental effort of the learners. Aid to memory questions. These questions are meant to let learners remember things they often forget. They are used only when pupils go against rules, advice or instructions. Types of questions and purpose. Rhetorical fluency. They test how fluent learners are. Learners are expected to answer in full. Prompting questions. The wordings of such questions suggest their answers. They prompt pupils to make them answer questions. For example, Godfred is a good spokesman, isn't he? Teachers resort to these questions on realizing that learners find his lesson difficult to understand. Convergent. They are questions that limit answers to single or small number of responses. The learner has already heard the answer before or has previously read or heard and is only to recall the facts. For example, what does the term etc. mean? What is the name of your class teacher? Convergent questions are also called direct or closed response. Divergent questions. These questions are open for several responses, that is, it has no single answer, but it can have wrong answers. The questions do not require specific answers. The questions do not require specific answers to be right or wrong. Divergent questions are also known as indirect questions. They are aimed at encouraging speculation and creativity among learners. They also make learners think critically. For example, the question, "Who is the most important person in Ghana?" will call for several answers. Probing questions. They are questions that immediately follow a student's response to a question. Probing questions are also called investigation questions. Probing questions are used to elicit clarification because they induce learners to show more of what they know, thereby revealing exactly what they understand. They are also used to solicit new information. Thus, they make respondents follow up their responses with small extension of their responses. Higher-order questions. These questions make pupils think and analyze issues. Focusing questions. They are also known as recapitulatory questions. They are asked at the end of each stage of the lesson and at the end of the lesson. They help the teacher to find out whether learners have assimilated what has been taught. It helps the learners to get in mind the important facts. They provide summary of each stage of the lesson. Lower-order questions. These questions demand simple responses like yes, no, true, false. When to question during teaching and learning at the beginning of lesson, that is, introduction of a lesson. 1. To test children's precious knowledge. 2. To call children to attention to begin the lesson. 3. To arouse the curiosity of the learners. During the lesson. 1. To encourage learner involvement in the lesson. 2. To find out how far the learners have understood the lesson up to a point. 3. To correct misconceptions of learners. 4. To call learners to attention at the end of the lesson. 5. To evaluate the lesson taught. 6. To stress the most important points. 7. To find out the difficulty areas of the learners. How to make questions effective. 1. Questions must be clear and straightforward, meaning and wording. 2. Questions should dwell on important details. 3. Questions should be put in a logical order. 4. Questions should be put for all learners in the classroom, not specific learners. 5. questions may be carefully written down beforehand. How to question. How to ask question during the teaching and learning process is a skill to be acquired by all teachers. Among other techniques teachers can adopt when asking questions in class are as follows. 1. Avoid chorus responses from learners. Defects of chorus responses. A. Some individuals may noticeably not take part. It therefore suppresses individual self-expression. B. It decreases individual thought. Individuals may not think of the question to be answered. C. It does not permit the teacher to monitor feedback from individual learners. 2. Teachers should follow a simple 5-part questioning procedure to draw the mind of all the learners to the question. The 5-part questioning procedure. 1. Ask question before naming a pupil to answer the question. 2. Pause. This will make every learner have time to think about the question. While waiting, watch the learners for non-verbal feedback to determine how long to pause. At least 3 seconds. 3. Call on one learner at a time and by name. 4. Listen to the answer. 5. Emphasize the correct answer.